Right, let me tell you something that's going to make a lot of people very uncomfortable, but somebody needs to say it. I'm going to talk about what's really happening inside Buckingham Palace, and I don't care who it upsets. The truth matters more than feelings, and the truth is this: Prince William and Princess Anne have made a decision about Prince Harry that changes everything. Not for a week, not for a month, but forever. And before you start screaming at your screens, calling me heartless or cruel, just hear me out. Because what's unfolding here is far more complex than the simple narrative you've been fed by the mainstream media. I've known these people. I've sat across from Harry. I've interviewed members of this family. And I've watched this slow motion car crash happen in real time. And what William and Anne have done, what they've just confirmed, isn't some knee-jerk reaction to a family spat. This is calculated, this is deliberate, and frankly, this is necessary. They've drawn a line in the sand, and Harry is on the other side of it, permanently. Now, I can already hear the howls of protest. How can a brother do this to a brother? How can a family be so cold? Where's the compassion? Where's the forgiveness? And look, I understand those questions. I really do. But here's what nobody wants to admit. Sometimes, in positions of real power and real responsibility, you have to make decisions that would destroy an ordinary person. William isn't an ordinary person. He's the future king. And Anne, she's seen it all, survived it all, and she knows exactly what's at stake. Let me explain something about how monarchy actually works, because most people don't get it. This isn't a normal family. It can't be. The moment you understand that the institution must survive above all else, then everything that's happened starts to make perfect sense. William is looking at his 3 children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, and he's thinking about the world they're going to inherit. He's thinking about the throne George will one day sit on. And he's asking himself a very simple question. Can I afford to have uncertainty? Can I afford to have a loose cannon who might say anything, do anything, write anything at any moment? And the answer, clearly, is no. This is what leadership looks like when it's stripped of all the nonsense, all the platitudes, all the warm and fuzzy feelings. William has looked at the situation with absolute clarity and realized that Harry has become a problem that cannot be managed, cannot be contained, and cannot be allowed to continue destabilizing everything. Every interview Harry gives, every book he writes, every Netflix documentary he participates in, it chips away at the very foundation his son will need to be strong. So what does William do? He makes the hard call. The call that will haunt him, yes, but the call that protects the future. And Princess Anne, God bless her, she's the one person in that family who doesn't deal in fantasy. She doesn't do feelings and hugs and let's all get along. She does reality. She spent her entire life watching this institution bend and nearly break under pressure. She saw what happened with Diana. She saw what happened with Andrew. She's seen crisis after crisis, and she's learned the fundamental lesson: you cannot run a monarchy like a therapy session. You cannot make decisions based on what feels nice. You make decisions based on what works, what survives, what endures. When Anne stands beside William and confirms this decision, she's not being cruel, she's being honest. And frankly, I respect that more than all the mealy-mouthed PR speak we usually get from that palace. She's saying, in effect, this is done. This is finished. Harry made his choices, and now he lives with the consequences. That's how the real world works. Actions have consequences. You can't trash your family on international television. You can't accuse them of racism. You can't air every private conversation and grievance and then expect to be welcomed back with open arms when it suits you. For years, we've been told that reconciliation was possible. We've been fed this narrative that time heals all wounds, that private conversations were happening, that there was hope. Well, I never believed it, and I said so at the time, because once that trust is broken, once you've shown that you're willing to weaponize family secrets for commercial gain, there's no coming back from that. William knows it, Anne knows it, and deep down, I think Harry knows it too. What William has done here, and let's be very clear about this, is protect the monarchy from its own potential weakness. He's recognized that Harry's position, this bizarre half-in, half-out status, was poisoning everything. You can't have someone who's sort of royal, sort of not royal, sort of representing the family, sort of attacking the family. It doesn't work. It creates confusion. It creates doubt. And in an institution that relies entirely on stability and continuity, doubt is lethal. So William has made the calculation. He's looked at the equation and realized that keeping the door open for Harry, maintaining this ambiguity about whether he might return or what role he might play, was actually more damaging than slamming that door shut completely. At least now everyone knows where they stand. The protocols have been updated, the succession planning has been adjusted, the constitutional machinery has moved forward without Harry in it. He's been removed from the equation entirely. Now, people will say this is ruthless. People will say this is heartless. And you know what? Maybe it is. But I'll tell you something else. It's also necessary. William didn't ask to be born into this position. He didn't choose to have his entire life mapped out from birth, but he accepted it. He understands the weight of it. And he's willing to make the sacrifices required to ensure that when his time comes, the institution he passes to his son is stronger, not weaker. Think about what William has been through. He walked behind his mother's coffin while the world watched. He grew up knowing that every relationship, every friendship, every moment of his life would be scrutinized. He married a woman who had to learn to navigate this impossible world. He's raising children who will never have normal lives. And through all of it, Harry was supposed to be his partner, his ally, his support. They were supposed to face this together. But Harry couldn't do it, or wouldn't do it. He decided that his personal happiness, his desire for privacy, his need to escape was more important than the duty he was born into. And look, I actually have some sympathy for that. I really do. Not everyone is cut out for royal life. It's a gilded cage, make no mistake about it. But here's the thing. You don't get to have it both ways. You don't get to walk away from the duty and keep the benefits. You don't get to trash the institution and then expect to remain part of it. William has simply acknowledged reality. He's acknowledged that his brother made a choice, and that choice has consequences. He's not punishing Harry in some vindictive way. He's simply removing a source of instability, a variable that threatens to undermine everything. It's not personal, even though it obviously is deeply personal. It's institutional. It's about survival. And Anne gets this completely. She's the one who's always understood that being royal isn't a part-time job. You're either in or you're out. You're either serving the crown or you're not. There's no middle ground. She's lived that reality her entire life. She's never complained, never sought the spotlight, never written a tell-all book about how hard it all is. She just gets on with it. And she has absolutely no patience for anyone who can't or won't do the same. What we're witnessing here is the moment when sentiment surrendered to necessity. William would probably love to have his brother back. He probably misses the relationship they once had. He probably wishes things could be different. But he's not allowed to indulge those feelings because he has a responsibility that's bigger than his personal desires. He has to think about the crown, about the country, about the future. And when he looked at all of that clearly, he realized that Harry had to go, this is what real leadership looks like. It's not always pretty, it's not always comfortable, but sometimes you have to cut away the infected tissue to save the body. Sometimes you have to make the decision that will keep you awake at night for the rest of your life because it's the right decision for everyone else. William has done that. He sacrificed his brother to save the institution. And whether you agree with it or not, whether you like it or not, you have to respect the sheer weight of that choice. Now, let's talk about what this really means, because this isn't just about one family's internal drama. This is about power, about how institutions protect themselves, and about the brutal efficiency with which systems eliminate threats. And make no mistake, that's exactly what's happened here. Harry hasn't just been sidelined or given a timeout. He's been systematically erased from the machinery of the British monarchy in a way that's actually quite chilling when you understand what's really going on. What William and Anne have orchestrated here goes far beyond just removing Harry from official duties or taking away some ceremonial titles. They've engaged in what I can only describe as total institutional disassociation. Every lever of influence Harry might have once pulled, every channel of communication he might have used, every possible pathway back into the fold has been deliberately sealed off. And here's the truly extraordinary part. William has reportedly created protocols that ensure Harry cannot be recalled to service even in the most extreme crisis scenarios. Think about that. Even if there was some catastrophic event, even if the line of succession was decimated, Harry would still be excluded. That's not just drawing a line, that's building a wall and then electrifying it. Princess Anne's involvement in confirming this decision is absolutely crucial, and people need to understand why. Anne has institutional memory. She remembers when the monarchy was genuinely under existential threat, when public opinion could have swept the whole thing away if they'd made the wrong moves. She lived through the transition from automatic deference to earned legitimacy. She survived scandals that would have destroyed lesser institutions. And when she puts her stamp of approval on this decision, she's essentially saying that Harry represents the same level of existential threat that once nearly brought down the entire monarchy. Not because Harry himself is particularly dangerous, mind you, but because the uncertainty he represents is corrosive. The question of whether he's loyal or independent, whether he's in or out, whether he might suddenly return or might launch another attack, that uncertainty itself is the problem. Anne understands that in institutional terms, ambiguity is death. You need clear lines, clear hierarchies, clear answers. Harry refused to provide those answers, so they provided them for him. And look at the timing of this confirmation. It's brilliant, actually. They haven't done this in the middle of some crisis, some scandal, some emergency. They've done it during relative calm. That's deliberate strategy. They're framing this as proactive planning, not reactive damage control. They're saying this isn't about Harry's latest interview or Harry's latest complaint. This is about recognizing a fundamental incompatibility that no amount of time or goodwill can fix. Harry wanted to be partially royal. He wanted 1 foot inside the palace and 1 foot outside. He wanted the prestige without the prison, the platform without the protocols. And William and Anne have made it crystal clear that position is constitutionally impossible. You're either fully in the firm or you're a private citizen. There is no hybrid model. There is no compromise. There is no negotiation. What makes this particularly devastating, and I mean this sincerely, is that William and Anne are fully aware of the human cost they're incurring. They're not stupid. They're not emotionless robots. They understand that they're choosing to make permanent what might have eventually healed. They understand that they're creating a wound that will never close. But they've made a calculation, a cold, hard calculation, that the cost of continued ambiguity exceeds the cost of brutal clarity. They've decided it's better for the monarchy to be criticized for coldness than to be vulnerable to unpredictability. Better to know exactly where the boundaries are, even if those boundaries run right through the middle of a family. This decision also reveals everything about William's vision for his eventual reign. He's not building the sprawling extended family monarchy that his grandmother presided over. He's building what I call a fortress monarchy, smaller, harder, more controlled. William, Catherine, and their children at the centre. Anne and Edward providing experienced support during the transition. Charles maintaining continuity while he's still king. Everyone else is peripheral. And Harry isn't even peripheral anymore. He's been moved from peripheral to external, from family member to foreign entity. He might as well be living on Mars for all the access he'll have to the inner workings of the crown. And here's what really matters. This isn't just about Harry. This is about establishing a precedent. This is about sending a message to every future generation of royals. The message is simple. Loyalty to the institution is absolute and non-negotiable. Anyone who tries to maintain a foot in both worlds will be forced to choose. And if you choose wrong, there's no coming back. Ever. Anne's involvement adds historical weight to this precedent. She's essentially encoding it into the institutional DNA of the monarchy. She's saying, look, we tried the inclusive approach. We tried being everything to everyone. We tried satisfying both traditional expectations and modern demands for authenticity, and it nearly destroyed us. So we're going back to something more autocratic, something more controlled, where the institution defines the terms and individuals either accept them or leave. Now, the public reaction to all of this has been absolutely fascinating and deeply divided. Younger people, particularly those who value personal autonomy and emotional authenticity, see this decision as proof that the monarchy is fundamentally incompatible with modern values. They see William and Anne as cold enforcers of an archaic system that prioritizes appearance over reality, duty over humanity. They think this proves the whole thing should be abolished. Older demographics and traditionalists, on the other hand, are applauding this. They see it as necessary housekeeping, proper boundary maintenance. They think William is showing exactly the kind of toughness needed to preserve the institution against constant cultural assault. But here's what both sides are missing: the internal agony this decision represents. William isn't a monster. He's not some calculating sociopath who feels nothing. He's a man who has sacrificed his brother on the altar of institutional preservation, and he's going to live with that choice every single day for the rest of his life. Every time he sees George and Charlotte and Louis playing together, being close, being siblings, he's going to remember that he's the one who ensured such bonds are conditional. He's the one who taught them that love comes second to duty, that blood is less important than hierarchy, that human connection is expendable when institutional survival is at stake. And Anne, for all her famous toughness, has watched enough families destroyed by the crown to know that this decision will echo across generations. The children growing up in this family now will internalize a very specific lesson. Step out of line and you don't get a warning, you don't get a second chance, you get permanent exile. That's the reality they're creating. That's the culture they're embedding. This confirmation also creates a template for how future problems will be handled. If anyone else in the family deviates from the approved script, if they question the system or try to forge their own path, they now know exactly what awaits them. William and Anne haven't just dealt with the Harry problem. They've created a deterrent system. It's governance through preemptive intimidation. Everyone in that family now understands the stakes with perfect clarity. And this is where I actually start to question whether they've gone too far. Look, I've been very clear about my views on Harry and Meghan. I think they've behaved appallingly. I think they've been hypocritical, self-serving, and destructive. I stand by all of that. But there's a difference between holding someone accountable and systematically erasing them from existence. There's a difference between protecting an institution and turning it into something so rigid, so unforgiving, that it loses any connection to basic humanity. What kind of monarchy are we actually preserving here? Is an institution worth maintaining if it requires the systematic suppression of individual agency? Can a family that's supposed to represent national unity actually function if it can't maintain basic human connections within its own walls? These are legitimate questions, and I don't have easy answers. William and Anne have answered them with their actions. They said, essentially, that the institution matters more than the individuals within it, that survival justifies any sacrifice, that the crown must endure even if everything human about it is burned away in the process. I respect their clarity. I respect their willingness to make the hard decision. But I also wonder if they've created something that's ultimately unsustainable. You can't run a modern monarchy like a medieval court. You can't expect people in the 21st century to simply accept that some individuals are born to serve an institution regardless of the personal cost. And you certainly can't maintain public support for a system that appears this cold, this calculating, this devoid of mercy. William has built his fortress. He's consolidated power. He's eliminated the threat. He's protected his children's future. But at what cost? He's going to spend the rest of his life looking at photographs of himself and Harry as children, knowing that he's the one who ended that relationship permanently. He's going to watch his own children grow up knowing that their uncle exists somewhere in the world but is forbidden from being part of their lives. He's going to bear the weight of that choice every single day. And maybe that's the price of the crown. Maybe that's what leadership actually requires. Maybe William is right that institutional survival demands this level of ruthlessness, but it doesn't make it any less tragic. It doesn't make it any less heartbreaking. And it doesn't answer the fundamental question of whether an institution that requires this much sacrifice, this much pain, this much deliberate severing of human bonds is actually worth preserving at all. That's the question we should all be asking ourselves. Not whether William made the right tactical decision, but whether the system that forced him to make that decision should even exist in its current form.